Nearly $1 million in sanctions. That's what a federal judge is ordering former President Trump and one of his lawyers to pay. It's over a lawsuit they filed against Hillary Clinton, former top Justice Department officials, and several others, alleging that the nearly 36 defendants conspired against Trump in the 2016 campaign. Judge Donald Middlebrook issuing a scathing rebuke of the case, writing, quote, "This case should never have been brought. Its inadequacy as a legal claim was evident from the start. No reasonable lawyer would have filed it." Ripping some of Trump's claims, writing, quote, "It was not that the complaint and amended complaint were inadequate in any respect. They were inadequate in nearly every respect." And pointing out Trump's habit of using the courts for his own purposes, writing, "Mr. Trump is a prolific and sophisticated litigant who is repeatedly using the courts to seek revenge on political adversaries. He is the mastermind of strategic abuse of the judicial process, and he cannot be seen as a litigant blindly following the advice of a lawyer. He knew full well the impact of his actions." And as of tonight, Trump and his team have dropped another lawsuit they'd filed, that one against New York Attorney General Letitia James. For more on all of this, I want to bring in CNN legal analyst Elliot Williams and Donald Trump biographer Michael D'Antonio. Glad to see you both here. First of all, Elliot, this judge was not mincing any words in his review of this lawsuit. What was your reaction?
Well, first off, I clerked for Judge Middlebrooks in a past life, maybe 20 years ago. And so, I've seen his opinions over the years. This was a very remarkable opinion. And I think there's a lot of focus on sort of the bombast and the, Trump versus the law. This is actually a very meticulous legal opinion, laying out the standard for when you sanction an attorney, what it takes, how they calculate the fees, and what the law says, and also looking back at past conduct. They point out the fact that the former president sued the Pulitzer Board over the fact that the Pulitzers were given to the New York Times and the Washington Post, in making a case that this was just a frivolous lawsuit. And now we should also note this $900,000+, it wasn't just a number pulled out of thin air. It's for attorneys' fees and costs. And the judge walks through, and again, in great detail, how you tabulate that $1 million. So it's not, I think folks have in their head that this judge just got mad at Donald Trump and then threw $1 million fine at him. It's far more complicated and legally supported than that.
Michael, it almost seems he's talking about this, and you hear about it in the press, the idea, and you've written about the idea of sort of the Trump playbook, so to speak, the idea of some litigants essentially not being able to go against the best lawyers that money can possibly buy. What is your reaction to this?
Well, I do think that the judge has noted one of the constant themes when you examine Donald Trump's tactics and methods. He sues people for a variety of reasons, and rarely does it have anything to do with justice. He wants to punish people by draining their bank accounts. He wants to attract publicity, and he wants to deflect the public's attention from his own misdeeds. So the very first lawsuit he ever filed was in 1973, when he had his pit bull, Roy Cohn, alleged that the Justice Department had acted as a Gestapo force in trying to get him to stop discriminating against minority applicants for apartments. I think the judge noted many cases where Trump has done similar things. I think he could write his own biography of Donald Trump, given what I've seen in the ruling. So he got it all right. He was one of the rare places where Trump met accountability. And this is something people ask about all the time. When will this man be held accountable? Well, here's one case where he has been held accountable.
Elliot, is this telling about his approach that we've talked about more broadly and how he views lawyers or even the justice system when he was the head of the executive branch?
Yeah, it's interesting, and when we talk about this idea of when will this person be held accountable, you ought to sort of treat every instance as unique. The fact that one person's suing Donald Trump or one jurisdiction is seeking to prosecute him, they all get sort of mixed together. And, I think an opinion like this is very important in sort of, in isolation. In this case, what we've seen is how you can sort of lay out a case based on the facts and law in one matter as opposed to pulling everything else in. So, it was just, I think it's just very powerfully written and well-reasoned and organized. And I think that just should be noted.
And it's true. The idea of conflation being a dangerous vehicle, especially when people talk about Donald Trump, everything seems to come together and they go, it is part of this, and this judge seemed to make very clear is about this case in this moment. Thank you so much, everyone.